Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my first impressions review of She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. So, I think I've made it pretty clear by this point, whether through just other social media or I probably on here, that I'm not a fan of the more comedic focused MCU properties. Um, I didn't like Thor Ragnarok. It's one of my least favorite movies of the entire MCU. I am not a big fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. The first one more so than the second. The second was terrible. The first one was serviceable, but I've liked less and less on rewatches. Um, I think that most of them feel forced. The comedy feels forced. It doesn't feel natural or believable at all. And a lot of times is honestly kind of cringy. So going into this series, when I heard it was going to be a comedy, I was admittedly very worried, especially compared to all the other MCU shows. We have all these other shows that focus more on, typical MCU fare. Like they'll have comedy in them, but it's not the focus. It's not the main experience of the series. Even something like Loki that had more comedy in it than I'd say pretty much any of the other MCU shows at this point. Even that was still more focused on the story, the superhero aspect, just the comic book style of the show. So again, going into this, I was very, very worried. And honestly, from this first episode, I would say that as of now, as of this first episode only, my fears have been calmed. Um, because the comedy in this feels much better done than in other MCU projects that are, again, comedy focused. Unlike Guardians of the Galaxy, it isn't as cringy and just unfunny. Unlike Thor Ragnarok, it doesn't feel as extremely forced and unnatural. It feels a lot more natural, a lot funnier, and a lot of it comes from just the actors. Tatiana has amazing chemistry with Mark Ruffalo. They work really well on screen together, and they have a good rapport. The way they're able to bounce off of each other comedically is actually really good. Um, so I would definitely say they really nailed that. There's some fourth wall breaking in this, which we did see in the trailer and all. Um, and I was worried about that as well because, one, we have Deadpool coming to the MCU soon. So why would you need to have another character who breaks the fourth wall? But also, fourth wall breaking characters can be done very poorly. To the point where it would feel, again, unnatural. Where it would feel like it would just be meant for a joke and not have any point to the series, where it comes across as just it just doesn't work comedically. Deadpool's entire character allows his fourth wall breaking to work extremely well, and I would say that She-Hulk's is the same in that regard. Um, Obviously, she's a very different character than Deadpool, but the way her character is written, the way Tatiana acts for her, um, she pulls it off in such a way to where the fourth wall breaking actually works. It's well timed. It's not constant, um, and it actually fits with her character's personality and just general sense of humor that we get to see throughout the episode. Obviously, as I said, a big positive for this was her and Mark Ruffalo's interactions, and getting to see the two of them actively like bounce off of each other throughout most of the episode, because most of the episode are these two training. Uh, Bruce is training Jennifer to be a Hulk. Um, so I think that because most of the episode focused on that and it was so well done, it allowed it to really shine and hook us in. Not just because, we know Bruce and having him bring in a character who is new, it's not even about that. It's more just because their chemistry is so good, and because our main actress is really, really good. Um, because she nails it on so much of the deliveries, so much of the comedy, so much of the even just character in general. Because of that, it really elevates it and helps us connect to her as a character right off the bat. And then we have the story. So I believe in the comics, Jennifer needs a blood transfusion and ends up getting it from Bruce, and that's how she ends up becoming the Hulk. In this, it's a little different. The blood thing is still a thing, but she and Hulk get into she and Bruce get into a car accident because Bruce, he's using this device that allows him to turn back into Bruce. It's a prototype device, but it allows him to maintain Bruce form, and that's really interesting. But we see that they end up getting attacked out of nowhere by a Sakaran spaceship, and it causes them to crash. During the crash, Bruce's device, his prototype device, is wrecked, so he's going to Hulk out again. And we see that both he and Jennifer sustain injuries that involve, them being basically sliced open to where they're bleeding pretty notably. In the confusion and all, Jennifer ends up getting some of Bruce's blood inside of her wound, and I believe vice versa as well. And because of this, the gamma radiation from Bruce's blood ends up mixing into her blood, and because she has similar genes to him, being his cousin, she's able to have the gamma radiation work in the same way with her, causing her to Hulk out. Bruce, meanwhile, having the blood, how would you call it? Not switch. Switch sounds too weird. The blood sharing, let's just say it. Because of the blood sharing, we also see that's how Bruce / Hulk's arm gets healed. People were wondering about that with the trailers. So that's actually a little bit of interesting information right away. But after the incident and after turning Hulk, she ends up making her way to this bar. And she's turned back by this point. She goes in. There's this really fun and really just genuinely nice scene where where she's in the bathroom, the women's bathroom, trying to get cleaned up because her clothes are torn. She's all dirty and everything from hulking out and everything. But some women come into the bathroom, see her just a mess, clearly think that some guy did it to her, and they just start helping her. They give her some makeup, they give her some new clothes, new shoes. They just straight up help her out with no hesitation. They even offer their phones to let her call Bruce and everything, and it's why can't more people be like this? Why can't more people be this nice and helpful and generous in real life? They're literally giving her some of the clothes off their back. They're literally giving her all this stuff of theirs just to help her out, just because they thought that she was hurt by someone. That kind of generosity and kindness is honestly a lot more rare than it should be these days. So it's watching that scene, seeing them just jump right into helping her. It's that just felt really nice, and just it warmed my heart really notably. It was weird because it's at this point I'm already interested in the show, but it's at this point it's oh, that's just, I really like that. I'm just really happy right now. But then she ends up hulking out when some guys start trying to flirt with her and trying to pick her up outside the bar while she's waiting for Bruce. And he has to come and stop her from going feral on their asses. She ends up waking up and the two of them are in Mexico. at this little beach house that Bruce has there that Tony built for him. And that's where he starts to train her. We see all this training. We see that she's getting a hang of it a lot quicker than he did. And he's extremely jealous, and it's really funny. Because she's able to control it right off the bat. She doesn't have like an alternate personality within there like Bruce did. And while Bruce had been able to like merge his personalities together, the Hulk and Bruce becoming Smart Hulk or Professor Hulk, whatever you want to call it, she didn't need to do that. She's just Jen. She's always been Jen, and she never has like another personality in there to deal with. Which, if you actually like pay attention to the comics, is explained because in the comics, Bruce had these alternate personalities before becoming the Hulk. It was a result of trauma from his abusive father, and so it's like the Hulk technically existed prior to him having the gamma radiation. That's just what brought the physical form out. That's why Jennifer doesn't have that kind of alternate personality issue, because she didn't have that trauma, she didn't have that pain, she didn't have that to worry about. And that's really interesting that they're actually integrating that into this series in a way, even if they're not going to mention Bruce's abusive father and everything throughout this. I don't know, they might. That might come up at some point. But yeah, we see that she starts getting the hang of everything a lot quicker than he does. And eventually they kind of start to argue and fight because he's, again, getting extremely jealous over her being so good at it. And she basically explains why she's able to control her anger so well. And it's a very sad but kind of true thing. Because she has to all the time already. Not just because she's a lawyer, but because she's a woman. Because she has men trying to mansplain her own field to her. She has people constantly looking down on her because of who she is. She's treated differently all the time and has to maintain her composure all the time. She has to be able to control her anger. And it's really terrible that sexism still exists and that women have to deal with it and learn to control themselves to not be seen as too emotional or whatnot. Just dumb bullshit like that. It's absolutely terrible. And the fact that she addresses it in here, and it's kind of the reason for her being so good at this. She's also extremely smart, like Bruce, as we see, being able to pick up on things pretty quickly, even to make quick adjustments. Like at one point, she tries to do the thunderclap, and it fails at first. But then she tries again, trying to figure out exactly how to do it, and she starts getting the hang of it, and it starts working. It's not as strong as Bruce's, but it's still doing something against him, because at the time they were fighting and everything. And you see like how quick she picks up a lot of it about balance, about her physical strength and everything. Like the scene you see in the trailer, her falling off the cliff and like flipping the bird, that was to Bruce because he pushed her off out of jealousy and anger because she was getting the hang of everything so quickly. And he took 15 years to master this. And he went through so much trauma and so much pain, and she's just getting it like that. And I know there's going to be some fans out there who hate that, who think that it's like, oh, she's a Mary Sue and everything. It's like, no, she's very clearly not. She's not just beloved by everyone. She's not perfect. She's not unstoppable. That's the episode made very clear to push that knowledge on us. And yet there's still going to be people who say that, because anytime a woman is shown being strong and capable, people say that. People will just automatically throw that like in as criticism, even if it makes no sense. and it's fucked up and sexist as hell. And I feel like this show, just based off of this first episode, it's going to deal with sexism. That's going to be a thing. I could see I could see Jen having to deal with people who's like, oh, she's clearly a lesser version of the Hulk. I could see people saying that in the series, and her having to deal with that. But yeah. Either way, after her and Bruce fight about her leaving and wanting to go back to her life and everything, and her not wanting to be a superhero, which is just unheard of for Bruce. It's like, we have this power, we have the responsibility to use it. And she's like, I don't want that. That's not what I want to do. I want to go back to my career as a lawyer. I want to go back to my life. And it's like, good for you, girl. It's making her so likable so quickly and so easily, and I really get it. I really get the kick of that. But we see that that she does go back to her life. Bruce finally relents and lets her go back, but tells her just straight up, if you ever need help, if you ever want to get more help controlling this or whatnot, the door is always open. I am always here to help you. And she does appreciate that, and it's awesome. Even after their fight and everything, he still wants to help her, but he's letting her go. He's not going to force her to stay anymore. And that's good. And so it like kind of cuts to the current day, which we don't know exactly how long it's been. But it's like, it's been some period of time. She mentions that she hasn't had a Hulk out incident since, and that she's actually told her family as well as her best friend, who's also a paralegal, I think they said. But she told her as well, so it's like, she's not the only one who knows. She's actually told people about it. Not a lot of people, but just some people, like, again, the best friend and her family. So she ends up going to this case that she had been practicing for, and everything's going well, and it seems she's probably going to win with the closing argument. But that's when another part from the trailer happens, and Jamila Jamil, I think it is, her character comes in, bursts through the wall. I believe her character's name is Titania. I don't know the character offhand, but I believe that's her name. She's from the comics. I do know that. I just don't know the character. But she bursts in. We don't know anything about why. Excuse me. But obviously Jen has to Hulk out, revealing herself to everyone there. And she does manage to take Titania down. The one interesting thing comes out of that. Titania, in confusion, asks Jen, who are you? Like, she asks her, like, in this really notable moment of confusion, as if she just really wasn't expecting any resistance. And it really does make you wonder, why was she there? Why was Titania there? What was her point? Was she hired to come in by the people being prosecuted? I don't know. But that's interesting. And it makes me wonder what's going to happen going forward. But then she turns back into Jen and is like, I'm ready to give my closing statements now. In like this, this just real girl boss moment. And yeah, that's how the episode ended. But there was a post-credits scene. And unlike Miss Marvel, I didn't forget to check for it this time. There was a post-credits scene, and it was, I wouldn't say pointless, but it didn't further the story or anything. Earlier in the episode, when Jen and Bruce were first on their drive before the Sakaran spaceship attacked them and everything, when he was in Bruce form because of the device on his arm, they're having this debate over whether or not Steve Rogers was a virgin. And so they're arguing over it. Jen's going over all this evidence she has and everything, and everything that she had heard about him from Bruce. And then again, it's kind of interrupted because of the spaceship attacking them. But in the post-credit scene, they're at the bar at on Bruce's little beach house. Because again, as shown earlier in the episode, apparently Hulks can metabolize alcohol extremely quickly, so that they basically don't get drunk. But they still suffer hangovers. Jen still suffered a hangover, but they don't get drunk. That's really interesting, and I feel really jealous. I know my limits, and I can drink a lot. But it would be kind of awesome if I could just drink as much as I want and never get drunk. um, but so in the end credits, they're drinking everything, and Jen seems like she's hit her limit. She seems like she's drunk, and she's like talking about like, oh, how was Steve a virgin and everything, and she's like, he has that ass, and it's like, oh god, they made an America's ass joke. He's like, how was he a virgin? And she's like slurring her words and everything, and then she like kind of like passes out and all, and Bruce like in this very like defeated way says Steve Rogers was not a virgin. He lost his virginity at this point and everything. I think it was like during the USO tour or whatever. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he's explained exactly when Steve lost his virginity and everything. And then Jen, like, just completely sober, gets up, like, and proves she was faking being drunk to get that information out of him. And she's like, yes. And it literally cuts off at the end in the perfect way. It's like, you know, those, like, perfectly cut videos. It's basically that. And she's like, Captain America, and then it cuts off because she was about to say fucked. And it's that was really funny. That was a good way to kind of wrap up that joke that was in the episode. I think that was really funny. And yeah, I think just overall the humor in this was really good. And for the thing I was worried the most about, I think that's a huge plus. The story was good. The characters are fantastic. Obviously, Mark Ruffalo's always been great as the Hulk since he took the role on. And Tatiana is... I keep saying just her first name, by the way, because I can't remember her last name. But she's actually really good as Jennifer Walters / She-Hulk. My only gripe with this episode is the CG, which we knew from the trailer and everything, and I was hoping that it would look better in the series. It doesn't. It doesn't. It still looks bad. And it's not just She-Hulk. Some people were saying, like, oh... in fact, I think people who worked on it were saying, like, oh, it's because she's like nothing you've ever seen before. She's so different in her physicality from Bruce's Hulk, so it just doesn't look the same, and you're just not used to it. Like, people were literally, like, I believe people who worked on the show were literally saying that shit, and it's like, so you're trying to basically the equivalent of mansplain to me about why she looks terrible. Because it's like, no matter what, the CG looks terrible. It looks bad. She looks fake. Like, good CG looks like it fits in with the world around it. Whatever it's for, a character, a model, anything, whatever. It looks like it fits in with the world around it. It looks like it could naturally be there. Even if it's, like, obviously so goofy, like, you know, a green person. The thing is, it's not just her. Bruce's Hulk doesn't look good either in this. It's not just her. He looks fake too. Like, he looks so bad compared to how Professor Hulk was in the movies. I don't know if it was just the budget or if it's because they've been overworking the animators and stuff. But it looks so bad. Honestly, I don't even know if it would be just overworking them or just, I don't know, because if they were overworked, I would think it would look better. Not that I'm saying they should overwork them, not by any means. Never do that. But the fact is, it's like, it looks terrible. And it's not terrible enough to where it will ruin the show for me, but it's very clearly terrible CG. She doesn't look at all like she belongs in any scene she's in. She really doesn't. Um, it doesn't look real in any way. I don't know how to explain it. I'm not like good with explaining why it looks fake or whatnot, but it does. It's my only gripe with this first episode, and I guess the series as a whole right now. But I would love to hear your thoughts. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this first episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law? And yeah, I will continue to watch this on my own time. And if I feel like I have enough to say on it, maybe I'll make a video again after I finish it. Though I don't necessarily think I'm going to do that. It's just like, if I have enough to say, if I feel like it's really worth making another video on it, I will. Just putting the option out there. Either way, thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.